Welcome back to Backroom Convos. I'm your host at the most, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you are a fan of pod, stay tuned because you might like what we cooking. I'd really like to apologize for the low energy on the first 15 minutes of the podcast. Other than that, please don't forget to follow, like, and comment to get a notification for each and every time we release a new episode. Let's meet on the other side. Cheers. Welcome back to Backroom Convos. I'm your host with the most, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you are a fan of pods, stay tuned because you might like what we're cooking. On today's episode, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Johann Rupert being the richest man in Africa. We're going to talk about the Cat William thing that happened over the week, and we're going to talk about the book called The Lost Boys of Bad Island. Excited for that, and we're going to touch a bit on MESSI and Oscar Pistorius, a bit on their sports. You know what I mean? How are you? How is this morning for you? You know, how was your first Sunday? Just to tell you a bit about my first Sunday. Didn't do much. I was learning how to cook. Actually, not learning. I cooked. Like spaghetti and relish on the side. So yeah, that was like the most exciting thing I've ever done. Like this year, haven't been doing a lot of things for sure. So, but other than that, how was yours? Like, what were you doing? Did you spend time with family? Did you go out with your guy? Like, what are even your plans? Like since Valentine is coming and it's all over, are you boot up? Let's talk about that. Please do leave that in the comment section. I'm your host at the most, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Yeah, the song of the day is Jungle by Drake, which was released alongside the album. If you're reading this, it's Too Late, which was released in 2015. The song is 5 minutes 20 seconds long and currently sits at 369 million on Spotify alone. It's an amazing song. So it's in the album called If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. So the album was released in 2015, which has a lot of songs. I'm sure you do know about it. There's a lot of songs. The songs that are featured on the Energy is on that album as well. Other energy, other enemies, got a lot of enemies, got a lot of people trying to drain me all this energy. It's on that album as well, if you do know that. I know a lot of people do know of that song, so I'm just surprised that people were listening to Jungle. So, but it has good numbers for sure on Spotify. I wonder on other platforms. Plus it's Drake, bro. Like Drake is doing like mad numbers in any song that he releases. And I know like some of the songs, such as like the 3 a.m. in Calabasas, like are one of like the fan favorite songs. And I think even Jay-Z on the list that he had for himself for like the favorite artist of 2023 or the favorite songs of 2023 had one of the songs. I think it was a Jimmy Cook, if I'm not mistaken, but one of the 3 a.m. 6 a.m. songs from Drake rather. And I was just surprised that like even now I'm still questioning myself or asking myself, though I was expecting maybe to see a Kendrick twist or something about Kendrick in that, but clearly I think it was very honest because he didn't look Ubuti. Kendrick is my friend because they are a friend. They do even stay in the same neighborhood in Hollywood, the gated community in Hollywood, Hidden Hills. They stay in the gated community, same place, neighbors. So they even are friends. So like they even have a song with Beyonce as well. Because I think, yeah, like they even have a song with Beyonce. So they have a close relationship. I think even when after Kendrick released the album that he just released last year, they were together after that. And Beyonce also had like a verse from Kendrick. The song Freedom, Kendrick was featured on there. I think 2 more songs. They have like 2-3 more songs with Beyonce, Kendrick and Beyonce. They have 1 song with Jay-Z and a good space relationship. And I think I also admire the fact that Kendrick also shares the same mutual respect for Jay-Z, because on the Control verse that we speak about, which was released by Big Sean, and shout out to people like J Electronic, because they were part of the song, but people are not giving them, the credits for that. J Electronic, I was there, Big Sean was there. Shout out to Big Sean for even releasing that song. He was showing a lot of love to people like Nas, Jay-Z, Andre 3000. He was showing a lot of love to those individuals, of which I feel like it's very necessary with your peers, or like, even if like I don't think Jay-Z is like Kendrick's peer, but it's good to like have that relationship. And he was showing or giving flowers to people like Eminem as well. So like that alone goes a long way, because even though there might be certain things in like the industry, the fact that he was able to say like, oh, these are all my peers and I'm smoking them, and I'm like, anyone who thinks he's better than me, they better release something. And I think a lot of people did, but like it never landed the way the Control verse did land, from Kendrick and Big Sean featuring J Electronica. It never landed. So I think even when that happens, I see with you like there's just so much respect, and I'd rather have like people who I feel like for me, should I get to a point, when I get to a point where like I'm that big, I feel like it's more important for me to have like people around that respect you, to tell you straight to your eyes, or what's it like, this is like the better approach to the podcast, or like this is what you should have done, or this is what you should, like if you're bad, like tell it to me to my face, and like don't go around like tell people, look, like boy is not the ish he thinks he is, you know what I mean? Like rather come to me and tell me it, I'd rather respect it. And I'm sure even if that came, and maybe Kendrick was like, oh, I understand, I'm not on the list, and I don't think he was even thinking, I need to make it to the Jay-Z list. And I think the fact that how I feel about the pursuit to happiness about Will Smith, and I think I did share this experience with you guys on the podcast, to say I couldn't watch that movie alone, and because so much in that movie for me was so real, the struggle, the facing the rejection, the boom in business, like there's just a lot of that, and like to for me to take all that, to select that, I'm incapable, and I'm like, well, like clearly there's a problem here for me, because I can't take all this, and I can't stand to watch this movie alone, and there is a problem here. And I was like, oh snap, Tyler the Creator actually was interviewed, and he was being asked about the Kendrick Lamar, the Big Steppers album by Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, for those of you who don't know. So he was being asked on an interview about that album, and he came out and said, yeah, like a lot of people are not ready to face the truth that Kendrick confronted in that album. It was a very vulnerable and confronting at the same time of that album. You know what I mean? And nobody is ready to talk about it. Nobody is ready to put that in the everyday, day-to-day conversation, to speak about that. Nobody was ready. We'd rather listen to like pushing P, like people killing one another in black communities within the state, and avoid the fact that we are going through a huge process where we like need to heal from like our traumatic, kid experiences, childhood experiences. And Kendrick addresses that to say like, this is a huge problem within our community, and I for one go through this, and for the fact that I have a voice to talk about this, I am going to talk about this in this album. And for that's why I'll forever like say, I respect Kendrick for the artistry that he brings to the musicality, or like the music side of everything within that album, like the creative elements, that the aesthetics of the album, like it really makes sense for me to listen to it. And I'm like, I just didn't get why though, like why wasn't it a part of like the list of Barack Obama and Jay-Z? It's like those are like the biggest people that, you know, but again, maybe water, we'd rather have water than, you know, like the We Cry Together song, you know, like from Kendrick Lamar, which was a part of the album. We rather have like Together in Grief. We can rather have water from Tyler rather than, you know, Together in Grief. We'd rather have that, you know, like even if you were to look at Barack Obama's list, and even if you were to look at Jay-Z's list, you will see like some of the songs that are within those lists. You'll see like these are all commercial songs. These are like what we deem as, you know, hits. Like it's a hit from Tyler. Not having anything from not having. I don't have anything against Tyler. You know, you look at songs such as Sensation. You look at songs like No Question from Davido and Chris Brown, and you look at a lot of the music that's being pushed out. It's songs for the vibe, and it's not songs for the soul. And the fact that Kendrick's music or the album or like the work of art, which is, I think the album is a classic in my own opinion. I think the fact that he was able to release that album in a time where everybody is listening to trap music, and, you know, like to change like the entire music, I don't know what's the word. He changed the entire music landscape to say like, you guys were talking about this. Like mentally, I haven't released an album in like 6 years, and this is the album that I want you to know about me. This is what I've been going through, you know, personal experience, you know. And I was like, well, for that time, a lot of people like academics were sitting down and saying, well, the album is not nice. It's not them, you know. It's not them. It's not Section 80. Well, it is a bit of like Section 80, but like more of a grown version from Kendrick Lamar, you know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, it is more like Section 80, but an older version of, you know, the Section 80 kid, Kendrick Lamar from Compton. So it's a grown version of that, and it's less like more like violence, and, you know, it's more like, okay, like I've went through a lot of this in my childhood, and now making sense out of it all, and, you know, this is what we are going through. And I'm not saying that anybody should change, but I'm just making you aware that this is what's happening, you know. So shout out to Kendrick for that, you know, shout out to Kendrick, and I'll forever give him props, even when like people are like doubting the album. And I know like a lot of people are more commercial. As I said, with even Egg was like, no, this is not the album. After dropping Damn, you come up with this. After not dropping for 5 years, like people were mad, and like I know it's like competitive as well with it. Yo, Kendrick, you know, I think it was around about the time, I think months later, when Kendrick released the Lover Boy, is it the Lover Boy, the album that he dropped? I think it's Lover Boy, Playboy something, I don't know. Like I wasn't listening to that album by Drake, so I think it's after he dropped that album where he had like the yellow verse in that album. What's the name of that album? I'm looking for the name. Don't mind me being quiet. So like I'm looking for the name of that album so I can tell you about that album. It's after he released that album, and like this is like where Drake was like releasing features with like Lil Baby, and where they were like going hard. Like they were going hard on like every album they were doing. He released an album with 21 Savage, and I think the 21 Savage album it's after the thing. It's after Kendrick dropped, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it's after Kendrick dropped, if I'm not mistaken. So the Lover Boy, yeah, it's the Lover Boy album from Drake. So Certified Lover Boy is the name of the album, where he has like emojis of those pregnant ladies, of which a lot of people think that is a bit corny. So yeah, when he released that album, you know, it's a vibey album. It's like Drake, Swaggy Drake, and like there was the Scary Hour he dropped, and they were like, you know, like if you listen to Scary Hour, you'll hear like like it's hardcore trap. The mix yet he had with like Lil Baby, like that's where the industry was at the time of like the release of Kendrick Lamar's music. And I'll also give Kendrick Lamar, and I wanted to see this. I know like I've wasted the entire segment of the show on this music thingy. I want us to talk a bit about the fact that the music that he released, the hard part 5 that he released, and he was morphing into different people. He morphed into Jason Smollett, which he wanted as just Jesse Smollett, and he morphed into people like Nipsey Hussle. He wrote those verses like from a perspective of a different individual. He had a verse that he was writing from Nipsey's perspective. He was writing it to the world and to his children, to the government, Uncle Sam, and he morphed to Kanye. He morphed into a lot of people, and that, my brother, is like, fine. Like, it's a fine piece of art. That type of music with me, it has a more lasting impact, given that, he's touching on real things that are happening on the streets, everyday life. We face those, and he just does that in a very creative and artistry kind of way. I don't know if that's even a word, and I enjoy that a lot from him. I'm like, way is creative. I think when you talk about Kendrick Lamar, you need to talk about the creative element to say, well, I've been listening to Kendrick, but I'm looking forward to hearing where he is, or to hear where he takes the musicality or the lyricism from paper, the word plays that he has, the syllables that he flips, from that element to actually taking it from writing to music, where he's like, changing his voices, Anthony, he has like different voices in the same song, to a point where he takes it to music video and like incorporate what he was doing with the voices to video, and also has the ability to create a story within itself, within the video, that's like working in cahoots with what he's saying and what you hear to what you see. Like, that entire 9 yard is amazing. And like, I think for me, that is like that's how I identify with art. So like, I look at the entire 9 yard and I'm like, this is like very nice. Even with an artist, and I'm going to shout out this one artist. His name is Johann Rupert. You can go out and look. You can go out and look for his work on YouTube. There's a particular song that he released, which is called "I'm Not Racist." The cover art, like the art behind that. I know, like, Joyner is very creative with a lot of the things that he does, and I know that he's underrated and stuff. I know that, and like what he did in that, it's amazing. The artistry in that is amazing, and I enjoy such art, and I enjoy being a part of that. I'm like, can you look at that enough? The fact that a lot of people know about who Johann Rupert is, and I'm like, some artists that like, I take pride when people don't know about a lot of those artists, because I get to listen. It's not always cloud, where like it kind of like sometimes overshadows your perspective on the musicality, when people are like talking about Calvin Momo, Habam, and you like have all these, they spoil it for you, because now already they planted a seed in your mind of expectation that this is the album. Like, I find it hard for me to have like, to disattach myself from what they said, and I'm like, already there's like a percentage that is affecting a level of my decision making in a degree. I don't know if that makes any sense, but with that, and I think I can like put this on the same parallel as when you haven't, like, this is for guys, so when you haven't watched the soccer match and your friend does watch it, or like anybody who watches a movie and they tell you everything, and like they give you all the spoiler alerts, and you're like, oh, now I know what to expect, and it's like the most boring thing ever for you to ever go through, and it's like torture because you know what's gonna happen because that guy told you. And whenever you watch a soccer match for the guys, as I said, whenever they tell you the score and who scored, and like it spoils it for you, you no longer watch it, you no longer enjoy it. And this the same goes for me with like how I consume music video and artistry in general, because I'm a creative, because I also write, as I said to you earlier on like the episode, for those of you who have been following the podcast. And shout out to everybody who's been a fan of this podcast. So the song of the day is Jungle by Drake. The song of the day is Jungle by Drake, which is currently at 369 million on Spotify alone. I'm your host at the most. Let's have and I get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's meet after the break. Cheers. Welcome back to Backroomconvo. I'm your host at the most, Lesego M, Daddy Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you are a fan of Port, stay tuned because you might like what we're cooking on today's episode. We've touched on Kendrick Lamar, the Jay-Z list, the Barack Obama list on the first segment. For those of you who haven't catched that, please, you can fast forward this to like the first beginning 15 minutes of like the episode. Don't look at the sound. Don't look at the listening cards of the episode. Just start the episode from the beginning to catch everything we've been talking about. And I've been asking people about their first Sunday. How was your first Sunday? I've really enjoyed mine. I've done the most exciting thing, which is like cooking, which I haven't done in a long time. And yeah, I spoke to an old friend as well. But like, I know I was supposed to talk about a lot of the things, and I was supposed to talk about the Lost Boys of Bed Island, of which I'm planning on talking about that now. We're supposed to be talking about Oscar Pistorius and the news report that was released that Paris Saint-Germain are reportedly being investigated after trying to influence the 2021 Ballon d'Or for the outcomes to be in favor of Lionel Messi. We'll talk about that. Johann Rupert being the richest man in Africa after Aliko Dangote. So Aliko Dangote is the second place, and Nick Oppenheimer is on third place. Nick Oppenheimer and family are on third place. So we are going to touch on that now. And I also wanted to talk about, I know we're going to get into a bit of politics with like when we get to the Nick Oppenheimer thingy. I want us to explore that option as well. With even the Lost Boys of Bed Island, it's going to be a bit political. Even I think it's going to be entire political, even with Messi. Oscar Pistorius, not so political, but yeah, do let us know what you think about the podcast on the comment section. I'm your host with the most, Lesego M, Daddy Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo on a Monday morning. How are you? The song of the day is Jungle by Drake, which sits at 369 million in Spotify alone, which was released on the album that he released called on 2015. The album was released 2015, which is called If You're Reading This, It's Too Late by Drake. The album is so great. If you know the song Energy, I Got a Lot of Enemies, that song, if you know it, I don't know the words for sure, but if you know that song is a part of that album. So I was listening to someone who was saying, Guti, you know, when you are doing podcasting, especially when you do like audio podcast like myself, like this is like more similar to like when you do radio, right? So he was saying to me, like, when you do podcasting, you also have to consider the fact that when you speak to people, you paint pictures because they can't see you, you know. They only hear your voice, but they can't see you. It's different when people can see you. And she said, her name is Hane. Is it Hane Kamokhelo something? Her name is Kamokhelo. She has a show in VUT FM. So she was saying, radio is theater for the mind. So you paint words, you paint pictures each and every time you come onto a platform, you talk to people. You have to be or have the ability to talk and paint pictures and still not get lost in the things that you say. I think in like some of the episode I get lost in like the things that I say, and I'm like catching myself on the 11th hour. But he was saying that, and I was like, oh, that's so dope. Like, radio is theater for the mind. That's so powerful. And I also like feel like even with music, R&B to be specific, I also feel like it's the theater of the mind. Same goes with podcasting. I was like, oh, that had me thinking for a minute. Like, I was like, oh, that's so profound, man. But I thought I should share that with you guys before we get on to like whatever we need to get through with today. So like Johann Rupert, I think that's the fair place to start before we can escalate to Lionel Messi. So Johann Rupert is the richest man in Africa now. So for those of you who didn't know, it only took him like five years, to get to where he is. I think he was on second place. He was on like 4 billion. Like his net worth was on 4 billion, and now you got Dangote. His net worth has been on like 9 billion, and it's been like stagnant ever since. But he rose from 4 billion to like going over Aliko Dangote within the space of 5 years. Like, I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, does this have to do with, like, I don't know, like, you guys on the comment section, do let me know. And like, if you have anybody who is an expert in the subject, drop his name, and we'll try and get the guest to enlighten us on what we are talking about, which is the thing that was going on with like the bank manipulation and the rand manipulation, to be specific. I want us to talk about that. We would see like how much of that rand manipulation influenced the decision of him being the richest man in Africa. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like make it make sense. I need someone to make it make sense for me, like the rand manipulation and how that has played a part in him being 10 billion, 10k, to him having a net worth of $10 billion, because he's like the first. So as I said, Aliko Dangote is on second place with $9 billion. So third place being the Nick Oppenheimer family, like the Stellenbosch. I don't know. I keep on also saying Stellenbosch mafias, and they keep on mentioning Nick Oppenheimer, Johann Rupert, like they keep on mentioning those people. And I'm like, oh, okay, like what's going on here? Like, I wanna know, guys. I wanna know, like, how did that get to where it is now? Like I don't get it. I don't get it, honestly. How much of what he does now was influenced by the bank manipulation, or if he's been a part of it? Like, if there's anyone who can break that down. And I also know we could see there's private funders. ANC has private funders as well. And I'm like, for them to be good, like the Ruperts, Johann Rupert, and the Nicks of the world, for them to be wherever they are. And like Msipe is like 2.5 billion, so it's not close to, because like the closest one to Johann Rupert is Nick Oppenheimer, which he's like in the third place of like the richest men in Africa. So we only have like three black people within the top 10 of like the richest people in Africa. So the first black people is Aliko Dangote, and like there's two other gentlemen, I forgot their names. So like those two, like three individuals are the ones that are like black in that entire thing, in the 10th of the like the richest men of 2023, or the richest men in Africa at this point. And please do let me know, guys. Like, I just want to know how much of that private funders, and like what's the role of a private funder in a political party such as ANC, and how much of that the decision making that's being made by ANC officials is being influenced by the monetary side, or the monetary aspect that's being brought in by the private funders. Like, someone please look me in on that, like, because I'm trying to build a web, or even if there is a web, I don't know if there is a web, but if there is a web, please do comment, and we'll have you on the show so you can break it down for everybody that's as confused as I am, get an understanding as to what's going on with this entire thing, and like give us, even if it's not about Jonathan Rupert or Nick Oppenheimer, or I just need a breakdown as to why they're being called the Stellenbosch mafias, and like just break it down to us in like layman's terms, so we can all understand and be in the same page. And so we also are in like the conversation, because I know what, like they say, a lot of young people are uninterested in politics, and currently politics are the ones that govern the country. For those of you who are not aware, politics are like government of the country and like the youth. And I think that's so true, because there is a portion of young people who like to party and do all those. There are individuals or the youth that's interested, who are actively involved in like varsities and national youth councils, or national, is it the national ANC national youth or something? There are individuals or like the youth that is involved, actively involved. And like for those of you who didn't catch the dude or the lady on TikTok who was saying, there's a high possibility that this year fees must fall make comments again, because of everything that's happening, the billions that have been embezzled and nobody is being taken into account. But that lady who took the 40 million and chowed, he got his time. Like, who are we holding accountable for this entire thing? People have to come to book and be accountable for also that. So I think that's also very interesting to have. And like, I just want to understand the dynamic. If there's anybody who can break it down, I'll be happy to have you on the podcast. So moving right along to like MESSI, so a report came out, I think it's News 24 if I'm not mistaken. This was taken from News 24 or the Disky, one of the Disky platforms. It's not written here, so I'm so sorry I didn't get that. I would have given them credit. So it says Paris Saint-Germain, which is PSG, signed Lionel Messi 2021 when he was playing in PSG. So they are reportedly being investigated after for trying to influence the 2021 Ballon d'Or for the outcome to be in favor of Lionel Messi. So that's the news, right? So I just want us to just dismiss this. I'm a big Messi fan, and like I know like those fans of that guy Cristiano, they like to like bring things that don't make any sense to the discussion or to the table. So I want us to talk about that. So I'm going to mention the top 10, even though like some of the names are like difficult as fuck, but I'll just mention the top 10. So number 1 was Messi, obviously, who plays for Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. Who played for clubs. He played for Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. So he moved from Barca to PSG. So he had 613 points. Second by Robert Lewandowski, who's from Bayern Munich, for those of you who didn't know, who has 580 points, the gap between the two. And there's De Jong from Chelsea, who has 460 in third place. There's number 4, who's Karim Benzema from Real Madrid, who has 239. These are all points. There's Kant from Chelsea, who has 186 points. There's number 6, Cristiano. Cristiano's number 6. Who would have ever thought? Cristiano's on number 6, who played at Juventus and Man United, had 178 points. And Mohamed Salah was from like Egypt. He plays for Liverpool. He has 121 points. There's Kevin De Bruyne from Man City, has 73 points. There's Kylian Mbappe, PSG, had 58 points. There's Gundogan, who's played for PSG. Is it PSG? Why is it saying PSG? But okay, we'll just leave it at that. Who has 36 points? Number 11, it's Erling Haaland, who played for Borussia Dortmund. Yeah, so, but now he plays for Man United, for those of you. For Man City, so Haaland, he plays for Man City. He has 33 points. Haaland is like the machine, bro. Like, so, like, I'm mentioning all these to make sure with the people who like came with all this, and I'm not sure where these people get this story from, or if this is going to pass. And if it's being that, like, every league has to be investigated. So, every player, and why is it only because of Messi? And I know there was also a saga even now, the fact that Messi got the Ballon d'Or, and like, why are we still complaining? Why are we still comparing? Like, the man took the World Cup, and he also, like, what? He took the World Cup. Like, come on now, can we do away with the rumors that are not like? You can see it was like, this is not true, given the fact that the man works really hard, and like the points or the stats is on the any public platform, like anything that covers soccer, you'll get Lionel Messi's figures, Ronaldo's figures, Karim Benzema's figures. You'll get, Erling Haaland's figures. Like, there's nothing to hide there. You know what I mean? So, but that's just me. I just wanted to cover that for those of you. And yeah, we're supposed to cover the lost boys of Dead Island, and I'll just move like as quick as I can, but I don't think we'll be able to cover that. But later on today's episode, we'll try so hard to cover that. So, like, moving right along to Oscar Pistorius. He's being released on parole, so he'll be obviously on house arrest, so he's not allowed to go out and do anything. He was convicted for murder in 2015 after an appeal court overturned an early verdict of the culprit of homicide or manslaughter, which is Oscar Pistorius. I'll read a bit about Oscar Pistorius. In 2012, Pistorius became the first double amputated to run the Olympics. Just 6 months later, he shot Miss Rivers again multiple times to the toilet door in his house. Shooting and subsequent trials gripped South Africa and the world. Pistorius, now 37, later claimed he had mistaken her for a burglar during the night. So yeah, that's a glimpse of Oscar Pistorius. He spent something like nearly 11 years after that, and he's being released on bail. He was supposed to, like, eventually, like, from the start, he was supposed to spend 13 years in prison, but spent something like 11 years and spending the rest in house arrest. And his late sentence is he's supposed to be off on parole until 2029. So I'll just read his bail condition. So, under South African law, all offenders are entitled to be considered for parole, meaning any release under a certain condition once they have served half the total sentence, which for Pistorius was finally a set of 13 years and 5 months. Until his sentence expires in 2029, he will be under house arrest or strict living rules, confining him to live home for certain hours in the day, as well as banning him from drinking alcohol. He is also not permitted to speak to any media. Additionally, Pistorius will be required to have therapy to help him deal with the issues around gender-based violence and anger. He is believed to have gone to live at the house of his uncle Arnold Pistorius in the upper market suburb of Capital in Pretoria. While in prison, Pistorius drove a tractor in the grounds, worked in the library, cleaned inmate cells, according to the legal documents cited by South African journalist Karen Morgan. Social workers and psychologists also wrote a positive report about him and told it to the BBC News, the BBC Newsday program. So that's a brief on like what's the parole concerning him. And I know he started to smoke now. He has a beard, and like there's just a lot that's going on with that man. I think for also someone who's been in jail, smoking can be like the way of releasing stress, like after going through that. So he had like a lot of like trial dates. So like the trial dates for him, the first one was on August 2012, the second one was in February 2013, the third one was March 2014, the fourth was on September 2014, The 5th was October 2014. The 6th was October 2015. Then December the 15th, July 2016, November 2017, June 2020 meets River meets Miss River Steenkamp's father, Barry, as part of the restorative justice program. On 2023, parole court agrees Pistorius should be released. On January 2024, freed from prison under parole conditions, which will be, had to be adhered by until 2029, and he's officially freed. So shout out to him. I hope he gets all the healing he needs and all the privacy that he deserves. Nobody needs to be shoving cameras on the face, and especially when your bail or parole condition prohibits you from speaking to the media. And I think that was very important for us to cover. For those of you who are wondering if I'm still going to talk about the Lost Boys of Bad Island, I'm not going to cover this on this episode, but I'll sure do cover that, or the Lost Boys of Bad Island, later on the podcast, which will be released around 3 p.m. today. So yeah, thank you for being with me. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy, like Cairo. The book of the day is Those Boys of Bad Island. I mean, it makes sense. It only makes sense for us to give it a book of the day since we haven't covered it on the first episode of the Monday morning. You know what I mean? So we just gave it the book of the day. So for those of you who want me to read a bit about the book, I will for sure. The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys of Bad Island. On Goodreads, it's ranking 3.6, which is not bad, out of 5. And Google users ranked it at 86 out of 100. 89. I'm so sorry about that. 89 out of 100. So it's a good book. It's by Mark Minnie and Chris Stein. So the book is 224 pages long. And I'll just give you facts and stats around that later on the show. Let's meet later on. I'm your host at the most Lesego M Daddy Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Cheers.